everyone. An estimated 300,000 people die in Canada every year. That means that well over 300,000 people grieve the loss of a loved one each year and beyond. As a society, we have a hard time talking about grief and knowing how to help those dealing with the loss of loved ones. So our next guests are here to help with that. Marilyn Smith and author and human connection expert Riaz Meghji, both friends of mine, are here to talk about their journeys and their experiences. And Riaz, I'm going to start with you. Sadly and just devastatingly, both your parents have passed. In fact, your mom passed just over a month ago. Tell me, how are you feeling right now in your grieving process?
Well, hey, Tracy, hey, Marilyn. Thanks for having this conversation today. When you ask this question, the one thing that I've thought about is being intentional about the word you choose, especially when people ask, how are you? And in this space, in this moment, and to be able to have this conversation, it's grateful. And this journey, it being so early over the past 5 weeks, goes from it being a sudden death, from shock, disbelief, anger, and now just gratitude for the support that people have shown, and then for us to be able to have a conversation like this about supporting others who might be grieving.
It was your video and your sort of call to action on Instagram that made us want to do this segment. So we have gratitude to you for being so open and for sharing your journey, and to always just sort of laying it out there, because I think that there are a lot of things that we can all learn. I know that I'm learning as well. Marilyn as well. We've talked, quite a bit about the death of your parents, and it's been a few years since your parents passed. Explain to us what the grief feels like now.
Well, I think it's really important to know that everybody has their own unique grief journey. So, what I'm feeling is really different from anybody else. But my mom and dad, my dad died 5 years ago and my mom 4 years ago. And I was talking to my sister yesterday, and it was like, it feels like it was yesterday and also 1,000 years ago. So there's this familiarity that that they're gone, but it's like, what do you mean they're not here? So, our son's getting married in July, and I really want to call them. So it's not a raw grief anymore. It's not like a jagged edge grief. It's more gentle. But that old saying that, time heals everything is a load of hooey as far as I'm concerned. I don't think it heals. I just think it becomes softer.
Yeah, you learn to sort of live with that pain. People don't know what to say when someone passes. So when someone says, I know what you're going through, it's well intended, but it's often not well received, and there's a reason for that. So Riaz, how does hearing that make you feel? I know what you're going through.
Yeah, it's an interesting statement because you understand that people want to help, that they want to empathize. This segment is what to say. I think we could almost reframe it in terms of what to ask, because when somebody says, I know what you're going through, it can be a form of connection, but it can almost cut off the person to have that opportunity to share, because as Marilyn just said, grief is so unique. So my grief could be very different from Marilyn's experience and compared to yours. So the first thing that I encourage people to say is think about the question you could ask. Instead of saying, I know what you're going through, one of the most valuable questions I've found is, what do you want me to know about them? What do you want me to know about what you're going through? Another common phrase people say is, let me know if you need anything. Look, when you're grieving, you need a lot of things. And you're so overwhelmed. When people say that to me, I'm not going to just reach out and say, hey, Marilyn, Trace, I need this, I need A, B, C, D. Simply asking, hey, Tracy, what brings you comfort right now? And when somebody gives you those clues, then pick up on it. If it's picking the kids up from daycare, if it's getting groceries and just dropping food at the door, it's making it as easy as possible to create a space for that person to share, and then just taking action and showing up for that person in their darkest time.
You know what, Riaz, I keep hearing again and again, and I've heard this from my pastor at church, and I've heard it from family members who have lost other family members. They say that they want to talk about the person they have lost. They want to talk about all the details. They want to hear stories. They want to celebrate the life. And a lot of people stay away from that because they're thinking, oh no, I have to tiptoe around this. I don't want to set you off. So my question to you is, Is there ever a time when you should not approach someone to talk about that person in their life who has passed? Are you, Riaz, ever in a situation where you're trying to shut your grief off so you can get through the day or get through a talk or get through something that you need to get through and you don't want to be reminded?
That's really interesting because I think does the person who's asking about the one you've lost have the capacity to support you? It is awkward when you're in a social setting, when you see friends, because I've learned the difference between friends and acquaintances right now. Acquaintances, they don't go there because of that exact thing you said. I don't want to trigger that person. But if they're a friend and you haven't seen them after a long period of time, and if you're watching this thinking, I feel uncomfortable, I don't want to bring it up, I don't want to make this person emotional, simply acknowledging it and saying, I heard. Giving them a hug, like the power of touch can go a long way. It's the simple gesture to let that person know that you know and you're thinking about them and you're feeling it with them, as opposed to not saying it. Because the challenge with grief is it can be isolating and lonely. And when you're in a social setting and someone has made that decision, they care about you, but they don't want to say it, it can alienate you to think that you're alone in this journey. So simple things. If you're worried about it, just acknowledge it. I know, I heard, I'm thinking about you, and just hold them, see them, and acknowledge what's happened.
Okay, good answer. Marilyn, what do you say to friends who have lost loved ones?
Well, I used to say I know what you're going through, and that was a big no-no. So, you don't know until you know, and I know now never to do that. The other one I hate is rest in peace. I hope they rest in peace. I want my mom and dad to be dancing in light. I don't want them... Rest in peace sounds dead to me. So those are two that I never say. So now I say, I am so sorry for your loss. Be gentle with yourself. This journey is your own. It's a roller coaster. There's no timeline. So, somebody says in a month, aren't you over this? Tell me who they are and I'll go punch them out. So, because it's not linear. And I remember somebody asked me, are you ever going to stop talking about your dad? I went, no, I am never going to stop talking about him. Don't forget about them, because when the funeral's over, after that month, people start going on with their lives, and you might not be. I mean, I didn't get going on with my life for over a year. So don't stop reaching out to your friends.
Good advice. Okay, Riaz, you say that we need to show up for each other with empathetic curiosity, and we need to ask meaningful questions. So what do you mean by this? I think you've given us some examples, but if there are any more you can give us, people are literally going to be taking notes, like I did when I watched your video.
Yeah, and you know what, like in this discussion, and what I'm hearing from Marilyn is just understanding the cues, and I credit you both, because when Mom suddenly passed, Marilyn, you reached out, and I knew you had been through this before, and you let me know you were thinking about me. That simple line, I'm thinking about you, is from a distance, I'm here with you in this journey. And Trace, for you, when you watched that YouTube video, you said, I don't know how to have the conversation, but I'm here to listen, I'm here to learn. And empathetic curiosity starts with those questions about, what do you want me to know about them? And ask first, talk second. Just creating a space for somebody to share, taking notes of what their reality is, and then just showing up for them with action, with words, and with empathy, and above all, just curiosity, asking questions before we come in with the right words to try and soothe them.
I think it's, you put yourself in a position of vulnerability, but also empowerment when you're able to walk into a situation and say, I don't know. And that is with everything in life. Is there anything else you'd like our viewers to know, Mare?
Grief is a very fearful thing, and people are intimidated by it, and a lot of people don't want to talk about it because it reflects on how they're scared of it. So don't judge your friends who don't come through, and put them in that acquaintance heap. Maybe they just don't have it in them to be there for you, and when it's all settled, maybe you can have the conversation then.
You do better when you know better. And I think that a lot of us are trying to learn. It's one of those situations we're all going to be in. We're all going to lose people we love. We are all going to grieve. And so we all sort of have to learn the language, how to be curious, how to be respectful, how to like respect people's boundaries, but mostly how to be there and how to show love. I think that is the most important thing that we can teach each other as human beings.
It's just leaning into it instead of leaning away from it. And I think that's with the grief conversation. That's with the post-pandemic conversation. We're all in a state of grief over the loss of the way we used to live our lives. And people are struggling in different ways. And some have hit the extreme of losing loved ones. And I think now more than ever is that chance and opportunity for us to reach out when they're struggling. And like Marilyn said, stick around past the first wave, because grief, somebody said to me, death is a date on the calendar and grief is the calendar. It hits you in different moments, anniversaries, birthdays, or just any random day. So just checking in with somebody. If you're watching this, check in with somebody that you haven't in a while and watch the difference that it can make for them.
Whew, that just slapped me across the face. Listen, the next time we can all get together, we're going to do this, and we're going to laugh, and we're going to cry, and we're going to do all the things. So thank you both for sharing in this really important conversation. I learned from it, and I know our viewers have as well.